Before the video gets started, I want to lead by saying that this video is going to be very vulnerable for me. If you aren't prepared for that, I totally understand. I want you to imagine something for a moment. It's 2002. You're coming home from kindergarten, and after a long, hard day of learning numbers and letters, you just want to lay on the carpet with your grandma's 6 cats and watch some nice Disney cartoons to unwind. And that's when you see an ad for a new video game. And there's Disney characters. Donald and Goofy are here, so is Mushu, and... wait, who are these guys? What's that thing he's swinging? Why are his shorts so poofy?
What is that thing?
And then the title drop happens, along with the birth of what would be an obsession for the next 22 years of your life. I love Kingdom Hearts. I've been a fan from day one, and I love it to death. I've played and finished nearly every game in the series, the only exceptions being the 2 games for the DS. I own a Keyblade that I have mounted on my wall, and I've bought nearly every release of the game. This was also the series that got me to try speedrunning, and gave me a new hobby that I love dearly. I have such a deep attachment to this series that, until Dark Souls came along, it was my favorite of all time. And I have to be honest here, my personal attachment for these games makes doing an unbiased review near impossible. It's a series I have been playing my entire life, and while every entry certainly isn't perfect, you're going to have a hard time convincing me the first game isn't damn near close. It has its flaws, yeah, and I will point them out, but I've played the game so much that they really don't bother me. Looking at it now, it sounds like Kingdom Hearts should not work. Final Fantasy is one of the biggest RPG franchises ever, often with deep, personal stories about what it means to be human, with characters going through the absolute ringer of emotional torment. And suddenly it's paired with Mickey Mouse? Goofy? Pinocchio? Okay, that one kind of makes sense. But lo and behold, we've been getting new games in the series for over 20 years now, and all of it started with the boy and his friends building a raft to leave their island. Or, more famously, it started in one fateful elevator ride. Before I go further, I do want to mention that most of my research for this was going to be from the cutting room floor. There will be a link to their Patreon in the description. Please go give to it if you can. This is not a sponsorship. They did not ask me to do this. I just think what they're doing is good. Also, browse around on their website. If you're ever curious about a game you enjoy, they likely have a page about it and how it was made. Somewhat famously, Disney Japan and Square Enix shared a building together in 1999. Still hot off the success of Final Fantasy VII and the release of Final Fantasy VIII, 2 men were talking about pitching a game to the Mickey Mouse house. These were Hironobu Sakaguchi and Shinji Hashimoto. Later, Tetsuya Nomura would join in on these talks. All were inspired by the open-world nature of Mario 64 and wanted to make an RPG to fit that style. Where Disney becomes involved is that they wanted to use characters people would recognize. Instead of Mario and Luigi, the trio would use Donald and Goofy. At some point in the timeline, Sakaguchi would be in an elevator to pitch this game to one of his colleagues at Disney. By the end of the year, Nomura would have the story for Kingdom Hearts penned and ready to go. Square had now officially started development on the game. There was only one small problem. Disney never gave their approval for it. Square was only in contact with the Japanese branch of the company, so no one there could give approval for any use of the characters. That changed when Michael Eisner, the then current CEO of Disney, took a trip to Japan in 2000. Shuji Utsumi from Sega had joined Disney at around this time and was surprised at how far along Kingdom Hearts was in development, considering, again, they didn't have approval to use these characters. So when Eisner arrived, against everyone's judgments and sayings of "this is sure to fail," Utsumi showed what was ready of the game. And to everyone's shock, Eisner simply said, "Keep at it and do it right." In the longest of long shots, on a collaboration that on paper should not work, Kingdom Hearts got the approval of Michael Eisner himself. And then, only 2 years later, it was released in North America for the PlayStation 2 on September 17th, 2002. A few months later, a newer release called Kingdom Hearts Final Mix would be released exclusively for Japan. This featured new designs for the bosses, several new Heartless enemies, and one new secret boss that would later become very important to the story in the sequels. But for about 10 years, this would remain region-locked to Japan. But for the 10-year anniversary of the series, Square Enix revealed that they fully translated and scaled up this version of the game for the PlayStation 3 and would be releasing it just a year later. In 2017, this would be ported to the PlayStation 4, along with the sequel, Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. This is the port that I will be playing today. I know it took a while to get here and that I focused on the development, but I really want to emphasize how much of a long shot it really is that Kingdom Hearts even exists. It's a collaboration between two franchises that are so different, it's like mixing water with oil. Now, yes, game development is particularly difficult, and any game that makes it out the door onto your hard drive is an act of God. But imagine, if you will, you're making a game using characters that you haven't been given approval for, and that if you are caught, this cartoon mouse with a gun is going to shoot you. That's basically what happened with Square and Disney. It was the biggest risk they could have taken, and they broke so many rules to do it. If Michael Eisner didn't make this the one good decision from his time at Disney, we would be having a very different conversation right now. I want you to imagine for a moment that you're finishing second grade. Your coursework is getting harder, but you're keeping up as best you can. Your mom is with a new man now, your stepdad, and you no longer live with your grandparents. On any visit to your aunt's home you get, you and your older brother are playing Kingdom Hearts, feverishly grinding away at it until you get stuck on a boss and have to head out for dinner. Your grandfather lives there now. You're not totally sure why, but it's where he is. He looks different now. Much older. His skin is paler. His eyes are growing more sunken, and his teeth are yellowed. You remember he used to smell like cigarette smoke. He doesn't anymore. And when you get home, you swear that, very faintly, you can hear your mother crying. The first thing you see when you start a new game of Kingdom Hearts is a wonderfully made early 2000s era CGI animation of our protagonist, Sora, as he falls away from his friends. You can hear a very upbeat, dancey remix of Hikaru Utada's Simple and Clean that is an absolute joy on the ears, but I can't play any of it for you or else Square Enix will come after me. But what I love about this opening sequence is that it lays out the journey Sora will take as the game goes on. He and his friends are separated, so he goes forth to try and find them. The last shot we see is our hero falling deep into darkness, until he finally stands on a stained glass platform, revealing Snow White. Remember the falling bit, that will come up later. And now, when we gain control of Sora, we are in the Station of Awakening, and the tutorial for the game. From this point on, I will be breaking down Kingdom Hearts into sections. One for the gameplay, one for visuals, and one for story. Don't worry, I'm going to try my best not to analyze the massive scope of this world, just talk about what's isolated to here in this first chapter. But let's start with the gameplay. Kingdom Hearts is an action RPG. Combat is in real time rather than turn-based. You level up as you beat enemies and bosses, you upgrade your gear, you navigate the menus with the D-pad while also moving with the left stick and hope you don't develop arthritis. It's a loop you can recognize if you're even vaguely familiar with the genre. But having a core loop doesn't instantly mean the game is good, so how does it actually feel to play? Sora handles remarkably well in combat for the most part. Combos are satisfying to land, especially the finishing blows with their big crash when they connect. Spells are fun to use, especially when you learn that jumping cancels the recovery animation, so you're able to cast them lightning fast. And the sheer spectacle of the summons makes them a joy to see, even if you have to sit through the animation every time. Now, to access all these options in combat, you have to scroll through the command deck here in the lower left of the screen. By default, it always has attacks selected. and once you use another command, the game will automatically bring you back to it. Once you pick any of the other menus though, another menu expands out and you have to scroll through that to pick what you want to use. Now, in other games like the Soul series, this was mostly streamlined to let you cycle through what you have equipped on hand, and that's all fine and good, but it feels much different in Kingdom Hearts. There is a bit of a burst of panic and adrenaline when you're fighting a boss or a mob of enemies and suddenly you need to throw a potion to save yourself, or cast Cure when you need it and you forgot to customize it. It adds a level of excitement to the combat that, at the time, I hadn't felt before. And now, all these years later, I still get a rush when I just manage to get a spell out in time. One thing I did forget to mention in the script, the gummy missions are fine. They're on-rail shooters. They're fine. You can customize the ship and make them go by faster. They're nothing to write home about. They are very boring. You only really have to do them once, and then you can skip them. It's not that big of a deal. They're fine. And I'm sorry I couldn't find another place to fit this in somewhere. As you level up, you obviously, yes, get stat buffs, but Sora will also gain new abilities that you can equip using ability points to further modify what you can do. These can range from powerful attacks like Ars Arcanum that consume a lot of magic but deal devastating, unblockable physical damage, to something like Hurricane Blast that changes your finisher into a spin that chunks off enemy health. Something interesting that I love quite a lot is the order of when you see some of these abilities unlock, because the tutorial of Kingdom Hearts does something a little sneaky. No matter the playthrough, you will always unlock the same skills. However, right off the bat, you have to make a choice, one power to take and one power to give up. Initially, this has the expected effect of increasing and decreasing the respective stats of attack, magic, and defense. But the power you choose to accept also determines the order of abilities you get. So in my case, since I took the staff, I will always get more magic-based abilities much earlier than if I took the shield. Then, this goes a step further when you also get to decide your experience curve. You can choose to take your journey at dawn, where you level up very quickly early on and much slower later, midday, where your level curve is even all throughout the game, or at night, where you level very slowly at the start, but much faster by the end. It's very minor tweaks, but the developers went out of their way to still try and give their players a customizable experience. It's a small touch that I still love, and something that the other mainline series games kept as well. But there is one big issue that everyone will tell you is intensely frustrating. The auto-targeting is very bad. There will be many times when Heartless will be right next to you, but Sora decides that a different one off-screen or very far away needs to be hit, and will swing towards that instead. Yes, it is annoying when it does happen, but I don't think it's as big of a hassle as others do. Most of the time, the targeting issue comes up from mob fights. In my experience now, playing the game, a simple solution would be to switch to crowd control magic to take care of the group, and then focus down individuals later. Don't worry. We'll get to magic soon. Now, did this always remedy the auto-target being wonky? No. There was the odd time or two when it would still throw me off, like in the card tower fight in Wonderland, but about 70% of the time, cast Blizzard on the mob and call it a day. Now, thankfully, you can turn the auto-targeting off if you really want to, but there is another option. Kingdom Hearts has a hard lock-on system. Press R1 and Sora will only focus on one particular thing in the room, usually the closest available object you can interact with. Obviously, this works great in combat, so if you really don't want to, you never have to deal with the auto-target. But an extra effect is that since it targets anything, it means you can use it to be more thorough in the rooms you explore. You can target chests, crates, barrels, NPCs, even this weird dancing doll thing in Ariel's Grotto. It's a good habit to get into as well, as a lot of the treasures that are in the game will need you to backtrack to them when you have abilities like high jump or glide. Now, the exploration bits of Kingdom Hearts can be a bit of a hit or miss. As I said, a lot of the exploration is mostly backtracking to find items you may have missed before. This could be in the form of trinities, which are these small colored circles hidden around each world, treasure chests containing the missing 99 Dalmatians, although there is not one in Atlantica because Square did think about how bad it would be for a box of puppies to be at the bottom of the ocean, or for any of the torn pages for the 100 Acre Wood. Circling back for these ends up padding out the game's runtime a whole heck of a lot, even more so if you missed any of the chests in Hollow Bastion. Which, yes, I will also save for a while later, and trust me, we're getting close. But, I mean, look at these worlds! This is by far the best part of the game because it just means you get to spend more time exploring. Wonderland is all centered around a location called the Bazaar Room, and most of the exploration is changing the dimensions of the room by how you enter it. Enter from the rabbit hole and it's a standard area, but if you go from the Lotus Forest, I'm on the wall now. I am on the wall. Okay, but what about this shack and the tea party?
How did I get on the ceiling?
There is a large amount of care to making the Disney worlds feel accurate to the films they're from, and then go a step further to make sure you're immersed in the setting. My favorite touch is in Halloween Town, where Sora, Donald, and Goofy all put on some sort of Halloween costume to blend themselves in. I especially love that Donald's torso is missing because his mummy wraps are falling off. It's very much style over substance, but I feel that is because the style is the substance. And then there's Atlantica. Okay, yes, the Little Mermaid world is bad. It's the thing everyone will complain about, but to the world's credit, this is one hell of a swing that they took. An entire underwater level with a unique control scheme all to itself, underwater combat, exclusive enemies you can't fight anywhere else, until the very end of the game, yes, but roll with me here. It's a great idea on paper. The swimming controls don't feel great. Sora becomes very slow and clunky as a result. Since these enemies are unique to Atlantica, you only see them and the search ghosts on your first visit, and Mermaid Kick is an annoying ability that procs when you double tap circle or square. So if you overshoot a rise or descent to get where you're going, Sora's just going to shoot off in the direction he's facing. It's a frustrating world. But god damn it, I love that they even bothered to take the risk with it. It is an ambitious experiment, and while it didn't work out the way they hoped, Nomura and the rest of the devs at Square have my admiration for even trying this. And once again, it still oozes with style. I love Sora's design here. The dorsal fin on the back of his tail is a nice touch. Goofy as a turtle is both charming and funny. Donald as a squid is so silly, and I love it. Plus, there is also something so terrifying about swimming out to the open ocean to fight Ursula here. Normally, you're surrounded by all these walls, reefs, and the ocean floor, but here, it's just empty and barren. Now, if only the fight matched that atmosphere. Okay, we can't avoid it anymore. Let's talk about the magic system. In Kingdom Hearts, your magic stat is directly proportional to your max MP, so the higher it is, the more damage your spells will do. If you invest even slightly into it, you effectively become a nuke with how much damage you do just by casting Blizzard. And remember earlier when I said that Sora's landing animation cancels the recovery time for spellcasting? Well, you also don't have to wait for his landing animation to end. So if you jump and cast a spell, you can immediately do it again after landing. Now, if I'm honest with myself, that's fun as hell. There's also some enemies like the defenders that you mostly can't do that with since they can block those spells. But there's two in the game that absolutely trivialize it: Gravity and Stop. Let's start with Gravity since it's the one players are likely to use the most. When you cast the spell, it immobilizes the target and also deals a fixed amount of damage based on the health. So, on a defender for example, they go from a massive threat to dead in about 2 seconds. And considering that Donald also knows Gravity, how quickly you can cast it because of jump canceling, and how big of an area the spell hits, you can deal an obscene amount of damage very fast, and fights become trivial. But the good news is that the bosses don't take any damage from Gravity, which brings us to Stop. I'm going to start this by saying that the wiki for Kingdom Hearts says that Stop is the worst spell in the game. Please remember that. So Stop is the most expensive spell in Kingdom Hearts, barring abilities like Ars Arcanum. It costs 2 MP to cast, and when done, it fully freezes the initial target and others within a certain range of Sora. The freeze lasts for a number of seconds equal to 2 plus your magic stat. While frozen, you can hit an enemy with melee or spells, and when the freeze ends, all of the damage is applied at once. And once you hit endgame, every enemy has a blanket 50% resistance to the spell. So yes, stop doesn't seem like it's worth it to use, right? Disney bosses are weak to stop. Nearly all of them, including Dragon Maleficent. The only bosses that aren't, you do not have stop to cast. Bosses that, if fought without magic, are challenging and difficult, then suddenly become the easiest fights in the game. And now, I present to you, with no cuts, the Ursula fight. So, I think it's fair to say that magic is a little bit broken. Surely they will have learned their lesson and make it weaker to balance it in the future. Right? Despite how overpowered magic can be, God is it fun to use. The spells are flashy and give you much needed advantages when you get into the end of Kingdom Hearts, as well as in the post-game. If there is only one complaint I have about magic, it's that unlocking 3 out of the 7 highest tier of spells are locked behind the Hades Cup, and we'll get there. I want you to imagine for a moment, you're in 3rd grade. It's winter break, and your family decided to stay at your aunt's house for the holidays. Your grandfather's still there, but he spends more time in bed now. There are these large cans he keeps with him, tubes going up into his nose. At some point, you ask him if you can play a game for him, like he used to do for you. And when he says yes, you immediately put Kingdom Hearts into the PS2 and hit New Game. You've played the game before, but this time something feels different. You're going to beat the game, and you can't explain why, but you need to. Kingdom Hearts absolutely oozes with style. Nomura has always been a very talented character designer, and the whole main cast looks amazing. Sora's design strikes me as inspired by Mickey Mouse with his puffy red shorts and big yellow shoes, yet with little things that make them all his own. A loose-fitting jacket, a crown necklace, and his fingerless gloves help give him extra character. Oh, and also, good God, look at that hair! That is actually a remnant from Sora's initial design, and to speak to Nomura's talent, it also looks amazing. Sora was originally going to be some form of lion, and the Keyblade was going to be a chainsaw. Everyone else's designs look great as well. Goofy's default look stuck with me so much that when I think of him, this is the look that comes to mind. Donald's design matches who he is in the world as well. Being a wizard, he can cast all kinds of magic, so with all of his pockets, it feels like he can pull any trick he can think of out of them. Now, what he plans to pull out of the beret, I'm not entirely sure. Okay, Donald, let's think about this for a second. But it's not just Disney characters here. Final Fantasy VII gets a ton of love, with Yuffie, Aerith, Cid, and Cloud all making an appearance. And for many people my age at the time, this was our first exposure to them. Cloud's design is a combination of himself and Vincent from their original game, and just like that, he became a staple on every emo kid's notebook. Oh, right, Squall's here too. Or as I knew him for the longest time, Leon. Why Nomura decided to change his name, I'm not entirely sure, but honestly, I like it better. Each character looks great with their designs mirroring how they look in their original games, if maybe slightly aged down. But the enemy design? Ooh, I love it so much. The primary enemy you fight in Kingdom Hearts are called Heartless, creatures that have lost their hearts and now search to take others. I think. I don't know, man, the lore is confusing and I still haven't made any sense of it. They start as just these adorable little guys that want nothing more than to break your shins. But as you progress, they change and start to become more varied. Each of them behave differently from one another. Some, like the white mushroom, are entirely passive. All of them, however, are brimming with personality. A touch I really like comes from the pirate Heartless that show up in Neverland. Very early in the game, you can choose to fight Sora's friend Riku, and he has this move after a few hits where he kicks back up to damage you. In Neverland, we see him start to create Heartless of his own, and the pirates will also retaliate against you if you knock them down. I'm fairly certain Riku doesn't make the pirates, but I can't help but think that this parallel is intentional. You spend all this time in the story searching for your friend, and now he fights against you as the enemy learns and tries to copy how he fights. Or maybe I'm reading too deep into it. I don't know. I have a tendency to do that. But the real star of the show is the world design. I mentioned in the gameplay section that there is a large commitment to immersing the player in all of the worlds you land in. Wonderland is a great example of this, but nearly all of the worlds feel like you're walking around in the films they're based on. There is this amazing kind of magic in sliding down trees with Tarzan, wandering the streets of Agrabah with Aladdin, and good God, Halloween Town is such a treat on aesthetic alone. If you ask me though, the real star of the show is Traverse Town. When I play Kingdom Hearts, this place truly and honestly feels like home. A small city where those that lost their worlds can just live. The home away from home. It's where you meet all of the Final Fantasy protagonists, barring Cloud. And they, along with Pinocchio and Geppetto, make a home here when you finish Monstro. Taking your first steps out of the alleyway into the first district is truly the moment when you realize Kingdom Hearts is something special. Also, this should go without saying, but the music is fantastic. Yoko Shimomura's work is the rare occasion where I can truly only describe it as perfect. Every single song she composed for this game feels like it fits exactly where it needs to. Part of the excitement of exploring new worlds is, yes, obviously being hyped to see Jack Skellington ham it up on camera, but also to hear Shimomura's homage to the films we're exploring. You see Agrabah and think, oh man, what's this going to be? And then you land and you get... and it just makes sense. That is what Agrabah sounds like. Deep jungle? Yes! These flutes are perfect! And of course, who could forget the title theme? Dearly Beloved. A beautiful piano piece that feels both playful yet also melancholic. It's an energy that matches Kingdom Hearts perfectly. Yes, we are having a fun time, but there is something underlying that, a kind of sadness. This will come back later. Yoko Shimomura makes good music. The sky is blue. Water is wet. These are just facts of life, and I will happily accept all of them. The gold standard, however, of the style of Kingdom Hearts is Hollow Bastion. It's a place that's teased multiple times throughout the game's runtime, with the first instance being in Deep Jungle when you gather the camera slides for Jane. Every conversation the Disney villains have is mostly there, and just before you arrive, you see a flashback of it in the library. It has a constant presence throughout the story, and when you land in the Rising Falls, you see the castle. Looming in the distance, the scale of your journey sets in. The weight of it all hits you, and it's intimidating. If Traverse Town is my favorite world in Kingdom Hearts, Hollow Bastion is the best. It is a massive, sprawling labyrinth that is filled to the brim with Heartless. Each room you step into, with only a few exceptions, immediately spawn them in. And from this point forward, they're incredibly tough. And the designs for some of the Heartless now go from the sometimes silly but fun to downright intimidating. Dark balls become very commonplace after this point of the game, so you get used to them, but when you see them first spawn in from those purple portals, it's unlike any other Heartless you've seen. Defenders with massive living shields that will snap and bite at you. Wyverns that are fast and position themselves over open air to bait you to fall. Everything is thrown at you here. This is the final skill check to see if you can handle the end game. And what a check it is. If there is one thing I could pick that is annoying or bothersome in Hollow Bastion, it's that the segments with the lifts are sometimes too long, and on repeat visits to try to find any treasure chests you missed, you're gonna end up waiting and doing nothing for several minutes at a time. But you know what? You spend so much time fighting here that it's a welcome break. Yeah, the lifts can be absurd, but if it means I can stop mashing X for a minute or two, I'll take all the time I can get. I want you to imagine for a moment, it's still your holiday break in 3rd grade. It's after Christmas. You've been playing Kingdom Hearts for your grandfather for a week now. He doesn't leave his room at your aunt's house anymore, but the PS2 is still there. You keep playing it, and after days of struggle, you finally beat Riku 2. And then something happens you weren't ready for. For all intents and purposes, Sora dies. Not like you lost the game. He stabs himself with the Keyblade and becomes a Heartless. For a second, you forget to breathe. He's the hero. He can't be dead, right? You look back to your grandfather and his eyes are closed. He's thinner than ever. He coughs a lot more now. His breathing is normally a lot more ragged, but now you don't hear it anymore. A fear washes over you. For a moment, you're too scared to keep playing. You feel a tightness in your chest, a weight in your stomach. You call to him gently, and one of his eyes slowly flits open, and a wry smile crosses his face. Had you for a second, huh? His voice is hoarse. You face back to the screen. A small sense of relief washes over you. And suddenly, a new feeling. Fear. You can't finish this game. You won't. Very famously, Kingdom Hearts has a long and confusing story. But the first game doesn't really start that way. The greater lore is vague, sure, as everyone, especially at the end, monologues about light and darkness forever, but the core story itself is pretty simple. Sora, the boy chosen by the Keyblade, loses his home to the Heartless. He and his friends, Riku and Kairi, are scattered across the other worlds, so he ventures forth to find them. That's pretty much the entire hook of the story. Lost anime boy wants to find his friends, hijinks ensues. In all seriousness though, this is a very strong setup, helped all the more by the fact that we get to spend time with the trio before Destiny Islands are consumed. Riku feels like that older brother of the group, effortlessly cool and collected, yet always competitive and looking for a way to show off. See the race he has with Sora at the start. And on replay, I was genuinely shocked at how much character Kairi has in this installment. Rather infamously, she becomes pretty wooden and bland in the later games, but here she's playful and energetic. A moment that sticks out to me is very early on when she tells Sora that they should just leave. only to hide it by saying it's a joke. And then she says this.
I just can't wait. Once we set sail, it'll be great.
At face value, yes, you could see it as a quiet excitement and realization of this is really happening, we're actually leaving. But Hayden Pantiere's performance adds more to it that, to me, suggests a kind of anxiety. Kairi is from Hollow Bastion, a world that was overran by the Heartless. She knows the dangers out there. To me, when I hear this line now, it's less of excitement and more of an attempt to reassure herself that this will be fine. Only, it isn't. Once the Destiny Islands are lost, Sora truly starts his journey into other worlds. In the background is the B-plot of Donald and Goofy on the hunt to find the wielder of the Keyblade, so they can assist in saving the worlds by sealing away the darkness in each one. And that's when, after a long search of Traverse Town, they find Sora. And I know this is a stupid sentence to say, but I really mean it. These three are the emotional core of the story, and it is so goddamn good. I mean this with all sincerity. Donald's growth across the story in regards to Sora's friendship is so damn good. In the beginning, they argue and bicker quite a bit. They crash the gummy ship at one point over a fight. And when they finally find Riku, Donald outright refuses to let him travel with the group. But after more adventures together, in Neverland, when Sora even mentions seeing Riku again, and the possibility that Kairi is there, Donald is supportive to go find her. When Sora loses the Keyblade, Donald is the one to stay behind and apologize. Goofy just leaves. And when Sora releases his heart, the first person to run to try to stop him is Donald fucking Duck. This little cartoon duck who barely makes a coherent sentence is so fucking good as a character in this story. And Goofy? Don't even get me started on Goofy. He is your ride or die. When Riku is about to try to kill Sora, Goofy steps in, abandons the mission he is on to save his friend. Even after Sora's death, both Donald and Goofy stick by to protect Kairi. By the time you reach Hollow Bastion, you fully believe that these three are friends, helped by the fact that they are always traveling with you throughout the game. So when these big moments happen reinforcing their friendship, yeah, of course you believe it. You've experienced it and played it firsthand. Yes, the Donald is bad at healing memes, strike true sometimes, but god damn it, when he catches you in time, it feels so good as you rally back against a boss. Parts of the gameplay help reinforce the themes of friendship and camaraderie in the story. It is literally the power of friendship that gets Sora the Keyblade back. But it's also important to focus on the main character. So, let's talk about Sora. Sora as a character is, no pun intended, the heart of Kingdom Hearts. Yes, he's the player character, and we're seeing the world through his eyes. But Sora is also the one who pushes the story forward. Why are we going to all these fantastical worlds? To find our friends. Sealing the keyholes gets us a navigation gummy to more worlds, so that's just a neat side effect. But each place you land, with the exception of Monstro, Sora is on the look for Riku and Kairi. And to be clear, he's not a selfish person. The search for his friends is not all that he cares about. If he sees someone in danger, Sora leaps in to take action directly. He does this with the trial in Wonderland, and again with Jasmine and Agrabah. He's a selfless person that has his own goals, yes, but he's also not going to be a bystander. He's not afraid to call his friends out on their bullshit. Riku is very much Sora's rival. At the start, it's friendly. They tease and mess with each other, Riku tricking Sora to try harder in a race to name the raft by saying the winner gets to share a piece of very significant fruit with Kairi. But they're also foils of each other. Sora is energetic, selfless, and at times stubborn. Riku is relaxed, malleable, and most importantly of all, he's selfish. So in Monstro, when Riku is talking about kidnapping Pinocchio to study how a being can have emotions but no heart, and trying to convince Sora to join in, Of course that isn't going to happen, because Sora is selfless and confident in his beliefs, while Riku is selfish and malleable. Then there's the moment in Neverland. Sora finally finds Kairi. The trio's together at last, but by this point, Riku has been fully manipulated by Maleficent. He's gained control of the Heartless. This power will bring them together again. It's all he needs. And then Sora calls Riku out.
You're stupid! Sooner or later they'll swallow your heart!
Not a chance. My heart's too strong.
Riku!
He knows Riku is making a mistake, that this choice is going to get him hurt. But there's one twist later that really cements Sora's strengths. When you first get to Hollow Bastion, there's a scene where Riku gets the Keyblade. It was always meant to go to him. When he was taken by the darkness, it instead went to the next closest person, Sora. Now that Riku calls to it, the Keyblade chooses him, willingly. And you still have to play out getting into the castle. All you have is a wooden sword and it deals no damage, but you do have the beast and your magic to get through. And when you finally get inside, one of Sora's best scenes in the entire franchise happens.
My heart!
Your heart? What good will that weak little thing do for you?
Although my heart may be weak, it's not alone. It's grown with each new experience, and it's found a home with all the friends I've made. I've become part of their heart just as they've become a part of mine. And if they think of me now and then, if they don't forget me, then our hearts will be one. I don't need a weapon. My friends are my power.
What?
Then, after one last push, after taking out Maleficent and reaching the inner sanctum of the castle, you get the second Riku boss fight. And it's revealed why Kairi has been comatose for the rest of the game. Her heart is inside Sora. This is expanded on in later games, but Sora can open his heart to others, holding on to them to ensure their security. Once again, Sora is so selfless, it is literally in his heart to care for other people. Even if it means he loses his life in the process, he will do it. Because that's just the kind of person he is. And he does sacrifice himself. He frees his heart to restore Kairi, and then he's gone. And it's this sacrifice that finally, after all of this time, snaps Riku out of it long enough for Donald and Goofy to get her to safety. Remember at the start when I mentioned the intro lays out how the story will go? This is what I mean. Sora looks for his friends, he loses Riku, and when he finally finds Kairi, he falls into darkness. Watching this moment again, I couldn't help but feel a swell of emotion in me. Before I knew it, I had tears rolling down my cheek. It took me back to a place I hadn't been in a long time. And then a thought came to my head. I can't do this. I won't. I want you to imagine it's 2024. You boot up your PlayStation to find something. You don't know what you want to play yet, but there's something for sure. And then you see it. The Kingdom Hearts HD collection. And you boot it up and just stare at the first game. It's been a really long time since you played it again. Not start it, play for a while, and then call it a day, but really play it. Start to finish, hours at a time. And over the course of a few weeks, you just play. It feels good to just be in this world again. To experience the story for the first time in nearly 10 years. And after you clear Final Rest, just before you go into the final boss, you stop. You remember nearly 20 years ago, playing this game with your grandfather. You remember staring at this ornate door, and thinking, I have to put this off. I'm not ready yet. If there is one thing I will gripe about Kingdom Hearts, it's item synthesis. Gathering the materials is a grind, as they only have a percentage chance to drop, and after beating Riku 2, all Heartless spawns change. But just running through the rooms over and over again is really tedious. It pads out the game's runtime so much, and it puts off so much of the exploration. Then there's the Hades Cup. Olympus is the world for those that enjoy the combat, and it is fun for the most part. Each tournament doesn't take very long to do, and it goes by pretty fast. The Hades Cup? It took me over an hour. Most full worlds took me about 30 minutes, and if you want to get all the magic to the max level, you have to do it. It's not required, but it is a lengthy time sink if you really want to do it, and it can put off the end for a while. Oh, and the super bosses. There's a number of them. The Phantom in Neverland is a very easy fight, just time consuming. See, you have to cast stop on the clock hands every little while, otherwise one of your party members will be removed from the fight. And Kurt Zisa is so difficult, he has all of these big attacks that can kill you pretty immediately, and he disables your magic or normal attacks on a cycle. But I did get close to beating him. I can just put off the ending and try again. Sephiroth is here too. Very famous boss, and he's super difficult. Most of his attacks kill you basically instantly, but if you spend time to learn his moves, just put off the ending a little bit, you can... Okay. 20 years ago, I beat my first video game. It was Kingdom Hearts. I was 8 years old, and in a move I'm sure is not going to shock anybody watching this, the segments in this video where I'm asking you to imagine something really specific, those were about me. My grandfather had lung cancer. He really did live with my aunt towards the end of his life, and she really kept the PS2 where he was sleeping. And yes, I really asked him if I could play Kingdom Hearts for him. And the reason was, when I was very small, my grandfather fixed up an old NES system. And he would spend hours of the day playing Dr. Mario. And I would be watching him the entire time, truly entranced and enraptured by what I was seeing. And I wanted to return the favor. I wanted to give that to him. And then something funny happened when I got to Final Rest. I was looking at the ornate door going to the end of the game, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't go through the door. So I started throwing myself at Sephiroth. I tried to beat the Phantom. I tried to synthesize the Ultima weapon, but I was so young and couldn't understand how to do any of these things. But that didn't matter. I just kept thinking, maybe if I don't beat the game, He doesn't have to go. And then one day, I was just staring at the door, and I did it. I beat Ansem. I sealed Kingdom Hearts, and I restored the worlds. The journey was over. A few days later, my grandfather died. When I got to final rest for this video, I stopped. This is the first game I learned to speedrun. I've done this a million times before. But this time was different. And I couldn't bring myself to go through that door. So I left. I did the Hades Cup. I beat the Phantom and Ice Titan. I threw myself at Kurt Zisa over and over. I grinded for synth materials. I put it off. Because I knew if I finished the game this time, it means I would have to let go of that memory. The memory of a little kid playing a game they loved for their grandfather. A core memory I had carried with me for my whole life. It means the world to me. And I wasn't ready for that. I started getting bitter. I was irritable. I kept getting so frustrated with playing Kingdom Hearts because I kept just finding one more thing I had to do. I took a break from playing the game and sat on my bed for about an hour. And then, after I cleared my head, I thought, it's okay. You have to let go. And I beat it. In a weird way, I always consider the ending of Kingdom Hearts a tragedy. By the end of the game, Sora found all of his friends, and immediately, they're all separated again. To beat Ansem and to restore the worlds means they may never see each other again. There's a moment just before the credits where Sora runs to Kairi. He takes her hand and says, "I'm always with you too. I'll come back to you. I promise." And the last thing he hears just before their hands are pulled apart is, "I know you will." Sora was separated from his friends, finally found them, only to lose them again. But it isn't the end. He will find a way back to them, and he isn't alone. So he wanders on with Donald and Goofy. And in his heart, he still has all of the countless others he's met along the way. I can't be unbiased with Kingdom Hearts. I can't tell you that parts of the game are bad or that I don't like them. I will somehow find a way to defend it. And if I'm honest with myself, replaying it for this video has only deepened my appreciation for it. It doesn't check all of my boxes the way Dark Souls has, but I still adore this game. It has meant so much to me for so long. And for a moment, I got to have that again. It's a series made from taking the biggest risk possible with what would become the largest entertainment company in the world. And it paid off. When I was a kid in 2004, I got to play this game with my dying grandfather. And that was one of the best winters of my life. I love this game. I always will.